Okay, so we're reading now the second letter of Rabbi Levi ben Haviv about the whole issue of the Semikha, whether you could renew the Sanhedrin, where he answers the arguments of Rabbi Yaakov Berav. And like I said, there are many halachic discussions. I'm going to highlight some of them. He says this. עוד כתב שנראה מלשונו שאם יערער אפילו אחד מחכמי ארץ ישראל אינה מועלת. Semikha, והדברים תמהים. He says, it seems, Rabbi Yaakov Berav wrote that based on Maimonides, it seems that if even one rabbi of the rabbis of Eretz Israel would not agree with the decision of ordaining rabbis, the whole thing would fall. But Rabbi Berav says that devarim temehim, that doesn't make sense. And he says, Kevan de'asik nahatam bechol haTorah kula rubo kechullo, amayin yitzlech acha be'inyan haSemikha ledat kulam nizil bataruba. So Rabbi Berav's conclusion was, just as we follow in the whole Torah, in every law, we follow the majority, here also we would follow the majority. Now, Rabbi Ben Haviv didn't like that. He did disagree with that. And he says, Hineh hacham liyoto choshev al atzmo shu gadol mikol bnei doro. Says this rabbi thinks that he's greater than all others. Velo od ela she'enam mahshivam lichlum. Eno medagdeg b'divrei hasfarim le'avinam karawi. He says not only he thinks that he's greater than the other scholars, he thinks that the other scholars don't count at all. This is Rabbi Haviv about Rabbi Berav. And Rabbi Berav was one of the head of one of the most prominent yeshivot at the time. You think of it, he is the one who ordained Rabbi Yosef Karo. And he says, he thinks that Hoshev shebesimat, I know he thinks that by just blinking at them, he already knows everything. She'im lochen lo kotev ma shekatav kan, otherwise he wouldn't write what he wrote here. He says that he thought שבעניין הוראת בית דין שטעו רובם מהווה ככולם אפילו שהמיעוט יערערו על הרוב ויאמרו להם שטעו. He says, he thought that if you have a beit din, if you have a Sanhedrin, and they made a mistake, they made an error. There's a whole parasha in Torah dedicated to the case of what they call הוראת טעות. They made a mistake in their decision, in their deliberations. What happens if the majority ruled in error? And the minority was trying to show the majority that they're mistaken. What is the rule? It says that when you have such a case, that the minority was vocal and said it's a mistake, then you can't waive it and say, okay, we follow the ruling even though it was a mistake. Otherwise, you say whatever the majority did is done. But that's only if the minority either kept the minority has to keep quiet. The rule is this: if the bedin ruled in error, it is valid only if they all agreed on it. Of course, when it's not causing irreversible damage. For example, if the whole bedin decided that Rosh Hashanah will be on Sunday, even though, according to the constellation of the moon and the star and everything, it should have been on Saturday, God says, okay, God sort of says, I accept your ruling and it will be on Sunday. But that is only if either all of them are joining on that error, or the majority ruled like that and the minority kept quiet. But if the minority says, no, you're making a mistake, it's not, it should be on a Shabbat, kivyachol, God doesn't agree with that. So this is the argument of Rabbi Levi ben Haviv against Rabbi Yaakov Berav on that issue. Then he has another argument with him. It says, all that he wanted with all of his halachic discussion was not Leshem Shamayim, was not for the honest quest of the truth, but rather lekayem smichato. He ordained himself, and he wanted to make sure that he remains there. V'hineni mekonen alehem b'mar. Now, with all the how would I say, the superlatives that were mentioned before, the great rabbi, the great scholar, now slowly things are coming out. He says, Omar, I'm lamenting this whole thing bitterly, and I'm saying, Elach eretz hakedosha even harosha, shemalkech zaken v'yoshev b'yeshiva mizmanei tuva. Says, woe to you, the holy land, the cornerstone. You have a king who is an elderly man who is the head of the yeshiva. All these are still praises, but then he says, לעד זקנה ושיבה יעבר עיני שכלו לרוב התאווה והאהבה. But on old age, his desire to be ordained and his quest of glory have blinded him. And those are very very harsh words. And he says the reason what happened to him, he says, is that he forgot his learning. He didn't take note of very simple halachot. All the halachot that Rabbi ibn Habib argues with him. He says, הייתה בהשגחת האל יתברך לעבר עיני שכלו בזה, לשלא יתמלא במינוי הסמיכה עם היותו מפולפל וחכם. He says, Hashem, I think Hashem made him make the mistake on this particular halakha, so I could refute him, so he would not become ordained. He says Hashem wants now, there's a new level. So it's not only a dispute between two rabbis. Rabbi Levi ben Haviv recruits Hashem on his side. He says, I think Hashem blinded Rabbi Berav to make a mistake, so I could refute him. They both had very strong, both sides had very strong personalities, but I think that you're right, that if you look...
You say like Rabbi Yosef?
Rabbi Yosef also had a very, very strong personality, and he did not... But it's a different situation. With Rabbi Levi ben Haviv, you have someone who finds himself in a minority position. He is the Rabbi of Yerushalayim, which is of a lower status versus Tzefat at the time, and the majority of the rabbis are in Tzefat. But he has a personal quip with Rabbi Yaakov Berav, and he doesn't want him to take over. So he becomes very vocal to take over, because he would be in charge of the whole Jewish world. And we see it very often that happens. That a group of minority rabbis, scholars, whatever, makes a lot of noise and creates commotion, and then people slowly drop out of their support. For example, with the Zionism, you had a lot of rabbis of the Orthodox world originally were fine with finding ways to work with Tzionut, with the state of Israel, but then you had then you had small groups of people very vocal who said, if you do that, you're not part of our community, and then people said, you know what, I don't want to get involved in that, and they either withdrew completely or just created some kind of a neutral approach. With Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, his personality from the very beginning was very, very strong. He was a prodigy. He knew his talents from a very young age, and he felt oppressed by the Ashkenazi establishment in Israel. So he decided he's going to do what is called lahzir atara liyoshna, to restore the crown of the Sephardim. But for him, to restore the crown of the Sephardim was not to go and ask the Moroccan and the Iraqi and the Persian and the Bukhari and the Tunisian and what is your custom and let us all live together. No, my interpretation of the shulchan-aruch, and that's where I'm going to go. And on the way,
the rabbanim came and they showed him that he was not
right. And on the way, he steamrolled anyone who opposed Haim Ovadia Yosef would be severely attacked. Like, it's unbelievable the way he outlashed at people that I'm Rabbi Yitzhak Nisim and Chacham Mordechai Eliyahu. At one point, it was Rabbi Toledano, Dayan Pinchas Toledano of London. In general, most of the Moroccan rabbis, he was against all the customs of North Africa and the Sephardim and the Ashkenazim. Yeah, even his own Talmidim, for his own Talmid Eliyahu Tawfiq, who went against him on a certain really trivial issue, whether the time after sunset is considered night or day, and you could say the Bacha again. He said this man did not learn, knows nothing, is a chick whose eyes did not open, and one of the worst dispute that he had with Rabbi Yosef Mesas, because Rabbi Yosef Mesas, when Haim Ovadia Yosef was very young, Haim Ovadia Yosef was appointed a dayan, or the head of the Keilah in Egypt. And he had a dispute with the local with the heads of the community over the food that they supplied to the local hospital, because it was after the war or during the war and very difficult to get kosher meat. Anyway, they went to war, and Haim Yosef declared that he resigns, and and he regretted. Right? They accepted his resignation. We have to go through this on the Teshuvah. Very interesting story. They accepted his resignation, and then brought someone else from the consistoire. They brought a French-speaking rabbi, and that's it. And he felt that the new rabbi is not up to his level, and wanted to get back into the position, and they wouldn't accept him back. It turns out, I found a letter that I think his name is not mentioned, but it's almost obvious that it's him, that the heads of the community in Egypt sent to Rabbi Mesas in Morocco, because he was connected to the consistoire. He was working with the Moroccan government, so he was a very leading figure in the French-speaking world. And they asked him about the claims of a rabbi who wants to come back after resigning. So obviously it's him. And Rabbi Mesas answered, he says, La arich le'me'abad hachi. He says, the way you dealt with him is inappropriate. You should have dealt with more respect. But from a technical point of view, from a contractual point of view, once he handed his resignation, it's done, he cannot go back. And I think that's why many, many years later, still, this grudge is evident in the writing of Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, because he almost never mentions Hacham Rabbi Yosef Mesas, except in his last volume of Yabi'a Omer, where he criticized every halakha, every single halakha. The Rabbi Mesas writes, says, no, it's a mistake, like he knocks them off. And in one place he says, even though we do not follow the rulings of Rabbi Mesas, he's a Id Ne'eman. We could use him as a witness. So, but it's not unique, by the way, between this dispute of Rabbi Berav and Rabbi Ben Haviv and Rabbi Ovadia Yosef and others. If you really go and delve into our literature of not the shulchan-aruch style, not the bottom line crystal cut halakha, but rather the whole negotiation and dialogue and responsa, you will find very, very harsh words, personal tendencies, grudges, vengeance. Why is it important to know that? Not chas v'shalom to throw mud at the great scholars, but to show us that we're dealing with humans, and we deal with our halakha today. We have to take into account to think what is divine, what is human, where we have the sensitivities to change. The question
to the point: how they used to communicate in the 16th century?
Letters. Letters. With shlichim, right?
I understand, but
it took time. It took. Depends.
An answer, and
it is. It's a good question. It's depended in great measure on the mobility of, because you would usually send letters with merchandise, with merchant ships. That was the because that merchants were safe. So you have, for example, the letters of the Geniza, even in the 11th, 12th century, you see that they always travel. They traveled in caravans, the ships, in fleets. They had a couple of merchant ships and guards from whatever kingdom that they would go, to guard against pirates. And they had, when they traveled by foot, also always trying to travel with caravans. The roads were not safe, so it would take sometimes months, sometimes weeks, depends on where you're sending it. And in this case, this is literally the first and second letter of Rabbi Ben Haviv and Rabbi Berav crossed each other. We say, we crossed each other in the mail. Here we think, if I send it on Tuesday, you send it on Wednesday. Back then you could have been, even if you sent it a month later, still it's on the way, the response.
Did Rabbi Yosef, did he write a lot?
Rabbi-ovadia was a prolific author. He wrote dozens of volumes, and in a way he changed the landscape of halakha in Eretz Israel, because you ask people today, the new generation, a lot of them forgot their customs. They know, oh, this is what how Yosef says. But you tell them, your grandfather didn't do that. My grandfather didn't do that. Oh, but they think this is the law. And the funny thing is that today you also have rabbis who
are independent,
who pick and choose from Haim Yosef, and they hide under his umbrella. Say we follow him, but they actually do what they want. So
yeah, because when I asked, but Rabbi Yosef says do this, he said, but the rabbi-karo, our grandparents, that's the way that they use, and we continue. Mm-hmm. Although they respect Rabbi Ovadia.
Yes.
On their car it says,
right, exactly. Right.
I told you the mikra of Tisha B'Av Nekadesh et Shimcha.
What?
The Moroccan, they say in the morning Nekadesh et Shimcha.
Yes. Right.
And Rabbi Yosef
doesn't, right.
It says you don't do this.
And
the Moroccan, they do Nekadesh. And they say, we know Rabbi Yosef said you don't say, but that's the way that our parents did.
Right. Now we have the slew of Moroccan rabbis. There's a book called Divrei Shalom Ve'emet, Minhagei Ma'arav HaPenimi. Rabbi Lebha, Rabbi Toledano wrote about that. But I said several times, the main damage that Haim Yosef caused to, I know people are afraid to say that, but he caused a lot of damage to Sephardic Jews, is that he reversed the course, the trajectory of their line of thought. Because Sephardic rabbis, especially the rabbis of Morocco and also Algeria, but also some of the rabbis of Baghdad, like my great-grandfather, Haim Ovadia and others, and the rabbis of the Ottoman Empire, Turkey and Salonika and all that, were very progressive. They knew the times, they knew what's happening, and they were working for the people and with the people. And the whole process of creativity was brought to a halt, and by saying we're going to go back to our tradition from 500 years ago. So that is the real problem. That it's not just about it. It's important, of course, that our customs were cast aside, but also that the momentum of being able to be innovative and to take care of the community, like the Sephardim always did, that mostly people remain within the fold, has gone away. So I just want to conclude that that's the last part of his answer in his called his Semikha Gimel. It's the second letter that Rabbi Ben Haviv sends to Rabbi Berav. He says this: "Gam ani omer tehila la'el ve'odahot lishmo hagadol." He says, I also want to thank Hashem. He says, he wants to posit himself as an equal to Rabbi Berav. שבהיותי יושב בכבוד ומעלה ככל אחד מבני גילי בתוך האוהל התורה בעיר הגדולה לאלוהים. I had the comfortable life sitting with the glory and great honors in like my colleagues. And this goes back to our discussion of the rabbis who decided to come to Eretz Israel and not stay in the diaspora. I was sitting under the tent of Torah in the great city, the city of God. Which is the city of God?
Jerusalem.
Salonika. Yeah, that for them was Ha'ir HaGadolah Elohim. That was where everybody flowed in. Everybody came from all over the Ottoman Empire and Spain and even Europe. But Natan belibi latzet misham al menat lavo po Yerushalayim tibane v'tikonem b'Rabbi Aminu. It says, but Hashem gave me that urge to come to Yerushalayim and live here. So he praises himself for that. And I'm here for about 14 years already. And ve'od ifli hasdoli, with his great mercy, I was able to teach and help others. And what are those things? Bizman besorot hashotim duvrei shekarim tipah ruham. כאילו שנמצאתי אז בעיר הקדושה הזאת ובמתק שפתיים הייתי מיישב דעתם כבר הייתה חרבה אז מכל היהודים היושבים בה. He says the first thing that I was able to do, he says there were certain things, it doesn't clearly write what it was, people were trying to convince Jews to leave Yerushalayim. They told them it's going to be dangerous to stay here, and Rabbi Ben Haviv was able to talk them out of it and make them stay in Yerushalayim. And he says, and my second great merit is that because I stayed in Yerushalayim, אני הייתי סיבה בארץ הקדושה שלא יצא לפועל מעשה הסמיכה שרצו לחדש חכמי צפת. He considers a great merit that because he is still one of the scholars of Eretz Israel, he was able to prevent Rabbi Be'erav from renewing the Semikha. And he says, just as I did that, I hope to be here when the new Semikha will be renewed. Okay, we'll continue B'ezrat Hashem next week. Baruch Adonai.